thinking about that in your heart right now. Amen? There's nothing hidden. Revelations 2:23 says this. I will kill her children with the plague, then all the churches will know that I am the one who examines minds and hearts, and I will give to each of you according to your works. He says, you will know that I am the one that examines minds and hearts, and I will give to you according to your works. Amen? Sometimes your blessings, your breakthroughs are being blocked because of what's going inside of you. The things that you're thinking about. Amen? Amen? And we can't blame Christ. I talked to a young man in juvenile hall this past weekend from Los Gatos. He's 19 years old. He's in juvenile hall because he's on juvenile probation. We were doing Bible studies. He got up and walked out. After Bible studies, he wanted to do a one-on-one. I sat down with him, clean-cut white guy. Not be racist. Young man. He says, I walked out of Bible study because you were talking about God. He says, I've been here since December. In the last few months, all I keep hearing is Pastor John. Pastor John, you need to talk to Pastor John. He says, I got a question for you. I said, what's that? He says, if God is real, why would God have my mom and dad call the cops on me to put me in jail? I said, why did your mom and dad call cops on me? He says, because I was high. I said, then God didn't do that, you did that. Your actions put you in the position that you were in, and your parents were going to have it in their house. You were high, you were under the influence, and they called the cops to get you out of your house. He comes from a family of law officers and military officers. Clean-cut guy. And he says, as we were talking, he said that, I've never been to church. He goes, and I didn't start getting high up until I was 16. He goes, I was a straight A student, and then I met a girl, and she introduced me to cocaine. Since he was 16 years old, in the last 2 years, he's been in and out of juvenile hall 6 times. I told him, it's the choices that you're making. He says, but if God is real, why would he have my parents call a cop? He said, it wasn't your parents. It was your actions. They weren't going to have it. I said, I'll tell my sons the same thing. I said, tell Johnny years ago, if you're going to start getting high in my house, pack your stuff and leave. Don't wait for me to throw you out. And he would do it. If he knew he was slipping, he would get up and leave. Amen? Because he knew it wasn't going to be welcomed into my house. Amen? But see, God knows the secrets of your hearts. He says, and all the churches will know that I am he who searches the minds and hearts, and I will give each to one according to your deeds, according to your works. You can't hide your thoughts from God. You can't hide what's going on from God inside of you. Amen? He turned around to these men and said, why? They didn't voice it out, but why are you reasoning within your hearts? Amen? God knows. God knows what you're thinking right now. If I called some of you up here and started telling you, you would trip out, so I'm not going to do it. I don't want to scare you away. I want to draw you in. Amen? If I started telling you what God was telling me about you, you would trip out. But we're not going to go there. God's royalties are inseparable. And that he could know the thoughts. And he could forgive sins. This magnifies the grace of Christ and the pardoning of sin. That he knew men's thoughts and therefore knows more than any other can know. Both the sinfulness of their sins and the particulars of them. But yet he's ready to pardon. Amen. God is ready to pardon us. Hebrews 4:13 says, and there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are open and laid bare to the eyes of him with whom we must give an account to. Amen. Whom we must give an account to. Johnny said something the other day. We kind of gather for little powwows in my house sometimes. Me, Rudy, and Johnny will just walking through the kitchen. We just start breaking bread, and start getting into topics and subjects. And I don't know where we were sharing about it, but Johnny came up the other day and we were talking, and he said that if we don't do what is required by us, by God for us, then come judgment day, we're going to have to give an account to that. Amen? And that's what Hebrews 4:13 says. And there's no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are open and laid bare to the eyes of him with whom we must give an account to. We have a mandate, church. We are commissioned to do God's work. You didn't find God because God wasn't lost. But John 15 says, I chose you. And because I chose you, I'm commanding you. Your boss tells you got to work overtime without hesitation because you're going to get a little extra money. You're going to work overtime. That's your boss. We're talking about Jesus, the one that gave you life, the one that saved you, that took you out of the miry clay. We have no hesitation giving our job what it requires or asks of us, but we hesitate about God and the things of God when he wants us to do something. Amen? But we don't have a problem giving it to our job. But we have a problem giving it to God. We're going to give an account for that. That scares me. That scares me, amen? It scares me for myself because I work out my own salvation with fear and trembling. And you got to work out yours. But as a body, we are mandated. The harvest is ready, the laborers are few. We're so caught up with work, so caught up with everything else that you got going on that you can't get out for Jesus Christ. Amen? Matthew 5:24. I'm going to share this passage of scriptures and then we're going to shut it down. Matthew 5:25, verse 14. It's going to be up there, but I'm just going to go through it. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. And then he went away. He had received the 5 talents, went at once and traded with them, and he had made 5 more talents, so he increased it. So also the one who had 2 talents had made 2 more talents. He increased it. But he who had received the 1 talent, he went and dug a hole in the ground, and he put the money in there. Amen? Now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 more talents for you. His master said, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set up much more over you. Amen. Entered into the joy of your master. Amen. Verse 22. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little. I will set over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you were a hard man. Amen. I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. Amen. But his master answered him and said, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scatter no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. And at my coming, I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of the teeth. Amen. 3 men. One took the 5 talents and increased it. One took the 2 talents and increased it. One was afraid and hid the talents. Amen. I don't know about you, church, but God has given every one of us talents here. And it's not our place to go hide those talents and think that we're doing a good thing. You better go out and increase what God has given you. Because if not, verse 29 says, For everyone who has will be given, and he will have an abundance. But for the one who has not, even when what he has will be taken away. Verse 30, And cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. Amen. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I don't want to be an individual that God says, Give me your talent, you worthless servant. I've given you something and you need to go out and increase it. Whether it be here or whether it be somewhere else, church, I will increase the talent that God has given me. Amen? I will. I will. And you need to have that mindset that we are going to increase the talents that God has given us. Amen? Don't be the servant that he comes and takes your talent away and calls you a worthless servant. I didn't write it. It's in the Bible. If you read it, you'll see it's there. He called him a worthless servant. He said to cast him. Cast this worthless servant into the outer darkness. And in that place, there'll be weeping and gnashing of the teeth. We have a mandate. We have a mandate. People should be flocking to this church. We are in a prime location. We should be bringing people in. They come for food on Wednesday or Thursdays or Fridays. Why can't we get them here for Jesus? Are we too consumed in our own lives that we can't do that? Amen? Are we consumed in what we're doing that we can't do it? Is it because of division that we can't flow together? Well, today is the day that we lock arms and we come together. Amen. Let's stand this morning. Amen. Today is the day, church, that we lock arms and we come together and said, united we can and united we'll stand. Amen. And we are going to do what God has mandated us to do. Amen. Let's pack this place out with people so that we are getting double services. We are even evening services. We can't do it. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Amen. There's nothing that we can't do, church. There's nothing that we can't do as individuals. There's nothing that we can't do in the walk. Amen. We can do it. We can do it together. Set it aside. Amen. It's going to take some work, church.